Before I begin this video, I just want to make a quick announcement that my new Skillshare class is finally up. This time I'll be showing you how to paint 3 different muffins. The class will start out from how I look for references to sketching out the basic shapes, and then finally my usual step-by-step painting without the use of reference this time. So we'll be drawing and painting from imagination with instructions and color mixtures until completion. The base techniques are quite repetitive and it's something that can be brought across different flavors, so hopefully by the end of it you'll be able to create a custom muffin. This class took me a bit longer than usual to prepare because it is longer than my usual classes. It's over 2 hours long, so you can actually work on this over 3 days if you would like, 1 day for one muffin painting, but once you have the techniques down, you'll actually be able to paint each muffin fairly quickly. If you've never been a member of Skillshare, you can go to the link in my description box for a free trial and have access to a huge variety of classes. I hope to see you guys there, and let's get back to the video. Hi everyone, this is Nia, and today I'll be showing you my rough process of how I illustrated my wedding invitation, along with some chit-chat of my life updates. This isn't really a tutorial, but I just thought that it might be interesting or maybe even useful for some of you to see the rough overall thought process from looking at references, ideation, sketch, and illustration. But in terms of the painting, I won't be giving step-by-step instructions. Instead, I'll be chatting about what's been going on with me, and of course, it's also for my memory's sake. If you're interested, you can keep the audio on, or you can mute the video and put on your own music if you want to relax to it without the voiceover. Before I started drawing or painting, of course, I looked at trusty Pinterest for a bit of inspiration, and I first came across a few illustrated wedding invitations which caught my attention. Here are some of the safe pins that I've gathered. I really like the whimsical children's book story feel for the illustration. You'll also see some simpler digital illustrations because at some point I was thinking of giving out notebooks as wedding favors, but we changed that. Here are just a few ideas that I've gathered. I love the woodland or the garden theme, something surrounded by plants and nature. Specifically, I like including characters, which will be the bride and groom. I also knew that I want the illustration to have a frame around the text or the body copy, and I really like the simple, delicate vines of this book, so I decided that I would include that style in the final illustration. After gathering the inspiration or mood board, I did a few sketches. I tried to figure out the composition and shape of the silhouette of the frame. As you can see, they're just tiny, small thumbnail sketches, and as I go, I make bigger versions, and I also try to break down the elements and the characters and what they're doing. In this case, my now husband is a classical musician, so I'm going to be painting him playing his oboe on the bottom right, while I'll be painting on the bottom left. The characters themselves would need to be large enough so I can paint on the details, so I decided to draw it out or paint it later on an A3 piece of paper. I also want to include animals, so I added my husky and also a lovebird in the composition. You can see the lines here are still a bit rough, so after this, I actually cleaned up the lines by taking it over to Procreate and outlining it again digitally to make a clean outline that I can trace onto my watercolor paper before I paint. So here's the clean outline I've printed out on an A4 piece of paper, and I'm going to trace it onto my A3 watercolor paper. The height of the frame of the vines won't be that tall, so I actually ended up cutting the top bit. But yeah, this is more or less an A3 size, and I'm just going to trace it like I usually do before I do the final painting, so I can reduce the amount of erasing that I do onto the watercolor paper to avoid it getting damaged. After I finish tracing, I'm basically just going to paint it. This took me around 3 days to complete, including the final digital version with text, and of course, we weren't even sure about the final date yet, so I had several days of revisions and things like that. So this is something that I originally wanted to post before the wedding, actually one day before the wedding, because my wedding was supposed to be on a Saturday and I post my videos on Friday. But it didn't work out that way because we ended up changing so many of our schedules since, well, the pandemic and all. Everything just got so muddled up, and since my husband is currently based in Austria, currently doing his studies, it was really difficult to organize time where he's on holidays both from uni and work, and also finding a time where it's safe for him to fly back with the least quarantine time we could get, because everything was already so packed schedule wise. And because we ended up changing so many things, I just got so caught up with the work that I was unable to post this in the end up until now. I've even uploaded and scheduled this video already for February, but I ended up scrapping it because the voiceover and the future plans that I mentioned in the old version of this video were no longer valid. I'm pretty sure a lot of you probably noticed the ring on my finger too after a few videos without any explanation, and many things happened already, and I'm not sure if I even remember all the dates and the details or even where to start. But basically, I've been dating him for a while, but we started a long distance relationship in 2018, and we didn't see each other for 3.5 to 4 years straight before the wedding. In 2018, when he left to go to Austria, he didn't think it was that important to come back to Indonesia the year after due to budgeting reasons. He was really living with the bare minimum back then, and I also thought, well, it has only been a year anyway, and seeing him the year after wouldn't be a problem. But as it has turned out, well, you guys know what happened in 2020 and the year after up until now. Though he could still technically come back here for holidays, I just thought that it would be such a waste of time and money. The ticket itself is not cheap, and given the condition with the quarantine and the flight time, a lot of days would just end up being wasted, so I didn't think that it was worthwhile in the end. Marriage has always been the end goal of our serious relationship, so we thought, why not get married instead? We've been talking about it for a while anyway, and even though it did feel funny for me for us to not see each other for almost 4 years, and then suddenly we're getting married the next time we see each other, but you know, what can you really do in these uncertain times? And we just thought that we should make the most of it. So we came to the decision maybe around September or October 2021, and at that time we both told our parents, but we haven't really found a date yet. We just know that we want to get married. We were thinking of either September or February 2022, which worked out best for his work timetable as well as uni timetable. Whatever time we chose, whether February or September, my mom thought that the date was quite close already, so my mom told me to look for bridals and venues as quick as possible, and we managed to get really good vendors after a couple of months, at least for the main ones, and then we sorted out more vendors like for food and accommodation prior to the wedding, close to the date. The procedure to get your marriage registered here is very complex, and the bureaucracy changes so much. For my case, I needed to photocopy so many documents which were supposed to be digitalized already, but nope, we needed to photocopy every single one of them, and we needed to give a separate copy of those documents to the neighborhood officials, then to the district officials, and then to the ward officials. And we also had to get our blood tested. Then after this, we needed to get married first and get a certificate from a religious authority, and then we'd be able to apply for the government registration, which will take a week or two for the certificate to be released. It was so complex, and when I completed all the documentations before the wedding, it seemed necessary, and I even asked all the people which were in charge in each office, and they did have the system in place in order for you to register. But after the wedding, when we wanted to get the government registration, it turned out that we didn't even need all of those things in the end, so it was just a total waste of time, but we couldn't afford to make mistakes since the time Billy will be here was just so limited. It was just one of those frustrating things, I guess. So, after giving it more thought, we came to the decision that faster is better because the longer and further away it is, the more unpredictable the situation will be. So, we chose to have our wedding on February and we finalized this date with all the vendors. Just for some context, typically for a lot of cases, wedding planning takes around 1 to 1.5 years, or sometimes 2 even, and pre-wedding photos are usually done months before the wedding itself, so the photographers have enough time to edit and pick out the photos. But because Billy won't even be here until a couple of weeks or a week even before the actual event, this makes it hard for their team because they'd have to work so much faster compared to the usual allocated time. I think it was already around November to early December. Billy, my now husband, booked his ticket to come on the 1st of February. At that time, quarantine took 10 days here, so he'll be out on the 9th or the 10th of February, which means we would have around 8 to 9 days to do the fitting pre-wed photos, picking out the pre-wed photos, the ones that we're going to print for the event, look at the venue, food tasting, technical meetings, and things like that to be allocated in the 8 days or the 9 days before the wedding. But by the end of the year, we heard of the new variant, which in Indonesia, they were predicting for it to peak at Christmas or New Year's or after New Year's. However, early December, it was surprisingly still under control, and the quarantine time was even lowered to 5 days instead of the 10 days. So we thought about moving it to the end of December. But for me personally, it was just way too close because I still had so many things that I need to schedule in. Billy was still in Austria at that point too, and we checked the time with our vendors. All the vendors were available during said date, except for the decor, which is very understandable since they have to find the flowers, figure out the design, backdrop, table setting, and so many other things. And to top that off, the quarantine time actually went up that exact same night to 8 to 10 days or something like that. So even if the decor would have made it at that time, it just wouldn't be possible for Billy to get here on time. So we came back to the decision of having it on February again. For a bit more context, different countries have different wedding traditions, and in my culture, weddings are huge. They're a huge deal. Around 100 people in a wedding is considered as very small. People go from 500 to even thousands, and it's normal to even take loans for weddings. I personally find this ridiculous, and a lot of times it's not even really about the couple, but more for their parents and families, and sometimes for even business. It's just so complex and over the top for my taste, and it just feels so cold. The couples themselves might not even know a lot of people who will attend their wedding, but this is just to give you some perspective about what's considered as normal in my culture. So you also get the idea of how much organization this would usually take. Luckily, just thinking on the positive note, because of the condition that we were in, the guests were very limited. We were only allowed 30 at the venue that I picked, and though I'm sad that my friends and families from all over the world, especially Australia and America, couldn't make it, we streamed the event for all our friends and families overseas and of course all across Indonesia, and I could actually have a small wedding, which I've always wanted and never thought was attainable given my family and the culture in my family. I personally really don't like formalities. I just find it so uncomfortable. Like, I wouldn't even be able to imagine how alien I'd feel at my own wedding, which is sad because that's supposed to be a very special day. But in the end, I managed to get that small wedding that I've always wanted, which I found was just so miraculous that it was even possible. But anyway, getting back to the timeline, by the end of December, amazingly enough, the new variant was also under control. Quarantine was still quite long though because the government wanted to keep it under control. But now the prediction changed for the peak to begin by mid to the end of February, in which case at this point our wedding was supposed to be scheduled on the 19th of February. So with this in mind, we discussed it again and attempted again to contact all the vendors and ask whether it's possible to change it to another earlier date. At that time, I think it was already January. We wanted to move our wedding to the 30th of January, in which case all the vendors were actually available at that time. This includes the wedding photos to fit with the new schedule on the earlier date before the wedding, and all the fitting, editing of the pre-wed photos and the decor is able to rush their work to be completed by the 30th of January. I can't really remember this part that well because there were just too many changes and too many things that we needed to get done. So I don't really remember the dates, but I think originally we changed his flight ticket to something like mid-January, but at that point, the new variant just kept climbing where he was, and they didn't want to put a lockdown in place. Instead, anyone who had contact with an infected person would have to put themselves under lockdown for 2 weeks. At the same time, he was still working and things were still open, which makes it kind of more unpredictable. Like, what if he made contact a couple of days before his flight and this would just ruin the whole plan? So he changed his ticket to an earlier date again, and luckily it worked out with his uni timetable, his 2 part-time jobs that he has. They were just so nice and gave him so much extra time for his holidays, way more than their actual limit, which we're just so thankful for. Not long before the flight, the quarantine time was actually reduced to, I think it was around 6 days or 7 days. We ended up having way more time together, but it was just so hectic. We had no break at all actually, and there were just a lot of small work to be done, with me designing the program booklets, table numbers, contacting families and things like that, which I'll show you guys some of the applications at the end of this video. Our venue was outside of Jakarta, and with very unpredictable traffic here, it was very risky to go to the venue on the day by car, especially on a weekend. Even if without traffic it only takes 45 minutes to get there, with traffic it could go up to 5 hours, because once the traffic gets congested, they'll start to open and close certain roads, and if they decide to close where you just happen to be in the middle of, that's just basically it. You're stuck in there for a few hours. So we ended up renting a villa very close to the hotel for our families and bridesmaids. The villa had many rooms and we could pretty much walk to the hotel from there or call a buggy to go to the hotel, and it's much cheaper compared to booking 5 rooms in the hotel. And we booked this so close to the date also. The timetable was just unbelievably crazy, but the villa was really top notch, and we even had a karaoke night together with everyone, and it was just so much fun before the wedding. A lot of us were basically choir members, so it was more like a karaoke choir instead. So we had a really nice clean family night before the wedding instead of a bachelorette or a bachelor's party, and it was just very memorable, and I really wouldn't change it for anything else. Onto the wedding itself, I really loved the decor. The cake was great, the venue was great. It was also in the middle of a rainy season, but it didn't rain during our outdoor photo shoot and video shoot in the morning, but it did rain when we had the GR and I was getting my makeup retouched. It was quite heavy too, but it stopped during the main event itself. Instead, we got a really nice sunset and a mountain view after the rain, since we were sort of in a glass room with many windows. We did include many of the traditions. In fact, a lot of Billy's friends from Austria were quite surprised at how formal and serious our wedding was, but in actuality, what we had compared to what's normal in our culture, what I mentioned earlier for you guys, is just considered so simple. So I think we made a pretty good balance between the two. This is completely off topic, but my hand here looks really gross. It's not because I had a skin flare up, but I think it was 2 days before I painted this illustration. I spilled a pot of boiling water all over my hands and thighs. When I'm super tired, I get really clumsy and stupid accidents happen. Usually not this big, but signs of me getting clumsy started a couple of days before. I accidentally poked my eye with my glasses. Then the next day I bumped my head on the door when the door was opening and it got caught on my slippers. Then the grand finale was this boiling water incident. It's all good though. I healed really fast and this was filmed so long ago, so my hands are perfectly fine now. I'm just saying this because I know a lot of you worry about me in the comments, which is so sweet. So I just want to let you guys know that I'm okay. Getting back to the topic again, my most memorable part of the event was probably when my father-in-law actually surprised us with something that he slipped into the event at the very last minute on the day. A lot of people thought it was part of our tradition and so many people commented on it, but it actually wasn't. He made a speech after we made our vows saying thank yous to the parents and things. And as we joined the two families together, we huddled, as in me, Billy, and our parents, and we sang together as the new family is being formed. He told us that he thought it would be a nice way to symbolize the two parents giving their blessings to our marriage, and I just thought it was so sweet. I even had a friend telling me that she never really cried before watching a wedding being live streamed, and that was the first. So yeah, I just thought that it was really thoughtful and it was very memorable for us. The only downside to it was because we were so busy organizing everything months and even the days before and the main event itself. When we were finally ready to sit down and eat, most people were kind of getting ready to leave. I mean, there weren't many people to begin with, so I don't know, it just kind of went whoosh. But looking at the bright side, I don't really like having to host until the middle of the night, which you usually have to do if you have the traditional huge weddings that I mentioned earlier. Instead, we had a really nice chill night with Billy's brothers and my bridesmaids, just chatting and drinking. So it was kind of perfect. Well, as perfect as it could be given the condition, which I think is better than what it would be in normal conditions for my case. I mean, if a big, huge princess wedding is something that you dream of, go for it. But I've been to so many of them and it just felt so cold to me personally, and it's not my thing. I much prefer something simple, intimate like this one. And of course, it would be like having the icing on the cake if my best friends from Australia and America could join us. But at least they were able to throw in a little speech at the end of the wedding, which made it feel more like they were part of the day. After the wedding, it didn't stop there because we had to take care of the documents and also other things like picking out photos. We got around 2,000 photos and I have to pick 100 to be put on an album. The parents from both sides have been asking for it and I just haven't gotten it done, and instead I moved on to scheduling more videos. I'll be visiting Billy very soon, which I'm super excited about. Originally, I did plan to move in with him, but certain things didn't allow for that to happen, so I chose to just visit him for a few months at a time. And saying this because I'll be moving around quite a bit and I'm quite bad with adjusting to new environments and things. I don't actually know how consistent I can be with my uploads. I have to really be in the mood to be able to produce these videos, so I hope I can adjust while moving around in between the two countries. At some point it might even slow down, but I'm just giving you a heads up with my current condition in case that happens. Currently I'm just trying to schedule in as much as I can before I visit him for the first time. So if at some point I miss a post or two or three, or I don't know, you guys will know why. I don't know if some of you noticed, but I've been getting really slow with replying to comments since the end of last year, and this is kind of why. I do try my best still because I really appreciate every single one of you who took your time to leave comments, and I do really go through and read through every single one of them. It's just been getting really hard to keep up, so I'm really sorry if I don't seem as attentive anymore. I really do try, and I hope that you guys will understand. And I know none of you demand it from me, but I just want to let you guys know how much I appreciate you guys for creating and being part of such a positive and supportive community on this channel. As for future plans, I was thinking of maybe opening a new personal channel for more everyday things as a memory dumping ground, I guess. But honestly, my schedule is so full already that I don't know how I'm supposed to fit it in. But I thought it's a nice idea to separate it from this channel. It's just going to be something that might even be bad quality because I don't know how much effort I can put into it, and I just want it to be something casual. I've actually started recording some vlogs, but I just never edit them. They're just in my drive. But looking back at some of my bad quality travel vlogs that I made so far and just rewatching them actually takes me back. So I thought that it'd be something nice to do. I know that a lot of you guys are not really interested in this because I can see from the views, but if you are, I'll give you updates once I decide to edit those videos. But please don't set expectations because oh boy, you're probably going to be disappointed in the quality. Yeah, that's all I have to say. I'm not sure if this is going to happen even, but I'll just give you updates if I decide to make this channel in case some of you are interested. So this is what the finished illustration looked like. The middle here is where the text will be. I then edited and added the text for the invitation digitally. We only had a digital version for the invitation along with quite a lot of applications, which I brought the design across. And here's the finished design for the invitation. This is one of the applications, which is the program booklet. The website is more or less the same design-wise, but I can't really show it here because it has some of my personal information. The booklet has more details for the rundown, but this first page here is probably my favorite because it gave me space to illustrate more, though it's not exactly necessary. Here are the extra illustrations that I made. I had so much fun doing this and creating the vintage children's book feel. I also made sitting plans that I made to go with table numbers along with group names, but I don't know where they are anymore, so here's just a picture of it. And this is the wedding favor, which is a passport holder with a customized design of our initials and a tiny oboe because that's how we met. So that's it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed listening and hopefully it wasn't too much talking. If you guys are still here, thank you so much for watching till the end and I'll see you at the next one. Bye!